Everything good?
Everything is great.
Awesome.
We're back at Comic-Con. I mean,
Yes, perfect. So, Chris, I have a question. The Boys score is your favorite of all time, because I know you are a punk rocker and you have a great taste for compose with an orchestra. You mix both on this score. What does it mean for you, this score?
I mean, The Boys it's such a combination of all the things I love and the people I love. You know, it's really such a dream to be able to do, because we have one of the most amazingly written shows and acted shows I've ever been involved with. That's run by literally my probably oldest and dearest collaborator, Eric Kripke, who I adore and trusts me and gives me amazing opportunity to write silly songs and all this great stuff. Directed mostly by Phil Segrisha, who I've known forever on Supernatural. And then we get to do nasty guitar. I mean, I used to play Metallica in high school in my rock bands. And to be able to blend nasty guitars and like slam on drums and literally, you know, hit the inside of pianos with hammers, and then also mix that with heroic themes, you know, with a full orchestra, and sort of blend that all together. It's sort of this unique opportunity that we almost never get. You know, usually it's one or the other. Yeah. It's not both. And so like here you've got a show that's got real heart, tons of comedy, a lot of real socially impressive stuff, and superhero and powers and lasers and like all this. I mean, every composer wants to write for lasers and suit people who can fly. So it's like all in one show. It's kind of like
the dream is.
It's a dream, you know.
Yes.
So it's really been amazing to get here and to get here with Eric and Seth Rogen, who I've now worked with for 5 or 6 years, also on Sausage Party, and Evan. So it's like it's such a dream team, and it's such a unique show that, you know, that's sort of sneakily, you know, it's really entertaining, but then when you watch it, you're like, oh, it's actually teaching a lesson too, which is, you know, that's like a whole nother level, and to be able to be a part of that and have it comment on society is pretty awesome.
Yes.
So kind of following up on that, when it comes to the politics of it, how do you kind of create the vibe of making those moments serious but still fun?
Yeah.
Because those are heavy moments.
They are heavy. The interesting thing about it, you know, when I sit back and think about it, is some of them are done really over the top. So, for example, if, you know, when they bring the Deep back into the 7, like, it's full Vought and it's very much, you know, it's as corporate as you get. And that's on purpose, but the fact that it's so serious in a jokey way takes a little bit of the air out of it, but also pokes you as a watcher and say, oh, I see what they're doing here. Whereas, you know, for example, something like the end of this season, when Homelander finally, you know, kills that guy in front of the stepdad, and then he cheers. And then, you know, one of the things that was interesting about that, and this is again Eric's great instincts, is I originally wrote the music like after he started cheering, after the stepdad started cheering, I had the music come in, and he's like, no, you gotta wait. You can't start the music until Homelander's mouth starts to turn. Because that's him deciding, that's him realizing he can do anything he wants to do, and no one's going to hold him accountable. Butcher will, obviously, eventually, but I think, but, you know, but it's that little moment, he's like, watch his mouth. He's like, okay, now the music starts. And to have that, it's really very specific as we go through the thing, and the same kind of thing happens with the songs we've written, whether it be, you know, Starlight's song last year, and then, you know, Chimps Don't Cry was hilarious this year that we got to do for Crimson Countess. Again, it's all supposed to be like, you know, that was obviously a parody of sort of a Carole Baskin, you know, Tiger King, like, weird internet thing, but that was on purpose, and Eric's direction was, go really cheesy. We're gonna have her like in a field, and we're gonna have her with like cymbals, and like we're gonna have all these slow motion shots of monkeys, and it's gonna be like the silliest thing, but it's gonna be the kind of thing that if you were a washed up superhero and you used to be like the big cheese and Vought, and now you're like trying to make ends meet and you're kind of wacky and and have this little like, you know, non-profit that you're trying to win. Like that's what it would be like. It would be goofy and cheesy, but also it's still proving that point. Like Vought dropped her. Vaught's not, you know, she's sort of like working at the theme park now, and that's kind of the way the corporate world would work. Like they're not. Ashley would say, you're not testing well. Your numbers are down. We're going to send you to Vaughtland, and we're going to have you do the afternoon show, and you can like, you know, do your monkey thing. And it's like, but it's like to even put that much thought into the jokes is something that I've ever seen on a show like this.
Yes, true.
Can you talk about the differences when composing for the Soups versus the Boys?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually changed a bunch. So the original in season 1, before we all knew as audience that the Soups were horrible, there was a lot of music for the Soups that was really what Vought would have produced for them. Very big, very Marvel, very, you know, Superman, very all that kind of stuff, and that was all very orchestral. And then for the Boys, we did a lot of exploration, and what Eric really wanted was, you know, he says it's, you know, sloppy garage music, and it's influenced because of Butcher. It's very influenced by, you know, by British punk, you know, and so it's got the guitars have elements of like Sex Pistols and Buzzcocks and all that kind of stuff, and then it's mixed with score where a lot of the instruments are not really what any of us play or are playing the right way. So like a lot of the things that are keeping the pulse is actually like hitting a out of tune cello with like a super ball on a stick, or you know, there's a bunch of percussion where like, you know, especially in season 1 where like they're gearing up to go do something and the boys are getting ready and there's this like chunk, and all that is literally every piece of silverware in the drawer at the studio. We put it in a big bag and we dropped it on the wooden floor and we mic'd it, and then we created this rhythm. So it's shung, shung, and it's literally like probably 100 pieces of heavy silverware hitting the ground. And that's what Eric was very serious about. He's like, I don't want it to feel like a rock band, but I want it to feel like a rock band vibe made with things you found at a junkyard, because that's really what the Boys are. They're scrappy. They don't up until this year they didn't have superpowers. It's like they had to work with what they had, and he's like, and I want the score to sound like you had to work with what you could find as well lying around. And that was really how we did it.
Awesome.
Hi, do you read some comics? And which one is your favorite? And do you see comics as a source of inspiration for your work?
Ooh. Let's see. I was a huge Star Wars and early superhero. I grew up with, you know, the Richard Donner Superman and the Tim Burton Batman. So I came from there, and then I really got into, you know, much like our, you know, Stranger Things counterparts. I mean, I had every D&D book. And that's what I did on Saturdays. I would play Metallica in my band, and then on Sundays we would play D&D. And so a lot of like, I wasn't necessarily a collector of comic books as much as I was like, I had every D&D book with all of the, you know, the out of world characters, and I had the whole thing where I had like a special like bag that my grandfather had gotten me that I had put all my dice in, and I would like, you know, specifically do that. I think I forget what I was like a chaotic magic user cleric, you know, and so that was my thing. So I was really coming from that world, more of like the fantasy, the sword wielding Conan kind of stuff, even more than superheroes. So when I finally got to superheroes, it was very much coming from the world of, you know, the movies of DC and Marvel, and, you know, and I think my ultimate dream would be able to finally get back and do something like a Narnia or Lord of the Rings or something like that, or a Conan, where it's, you know, magic and special powers, but also in terms of like almost a period piece with like swords and sandals and all that good stuff. So one day, I hope.
Yeah. Chris, favorite